in the Bitcoin industry as the Bitcoin Jesus. People still call you that?
Some people do.
All right. So Roger started technology really early for what it was and took it upon himself to bring it to the world. He funded many companies. Maybe you can mention those here today for us as well. And also, he is excellent at getting people their very first Bitcoin. So I'm taking this opportunity here. So like we mentioned earlier, anyone that's never used Bitcoin before, downloads a wallet, we'll give them a couple of bucks. And that's how we introduce everyone. Roger was one of the first to just do that all over the world, everywhere he went. So on that note, I'm going to mute. And
maybe you can unmute so I can hear the audience's feedback as well. But hi, everybody. So
I'll keep it on. You know, so this audience is, not surprisingly, this audience is pretty relaxed, mellow, and quiet. You can guess why.
Yeah, I'll be a little bit more relaxed and mellow and quiet myself compared to usual, since it's 6:30 in the morning in Tokyo. And usually I'm going to bed at about this time, not giving presentations on Bitcoin at this time. But Bitcoin is the only thing in the entire world that could have me that excited and willing to get up this early to do that. So, and thank you guys all for getting involved. And I think it's a fantastic match between Bitcoin and medical cannabis as well. Mainly because, as I'm sure all of you guys know, all the problems that medical cannabis users have in regards to banking, and all the businesses involved in there have in regards to banking. And Bitcoin can be a real solution to that. So as you guys know, thanks to Bitcoin, now anybody, anywhere in the world can send and receive any amount of money with anyone else, and they don't have to get permission from anybody for that matter. It just works, and there's nothing that Uncle Sam in Washington, D.C. or anybody else can do to stop it directly. But there are a couple of things that you should be aware of in regards to Bitcoin, and that's number one. Bitcoin is not automatically anonymous. You have to be really careful about how you use Bitcoin in order to be anonymous with how you use it. Another thing is that there's lots of different types of wallets, and some wallets aren't really wallets, they're more like Bitcoin banks. And so if you're using a Bitcoin bank, they're fantastic. They have lots of useful services. It's easy to convert the Bitcoins to and from dollars or euros or yen or whatever you want. But if you're letting somebody else store your Bitcoins, you're at the same mercy of all, just like if you were letting your dollars be stored at a bank. And as we know from all these medical cannabis shops, if your dollars are in a bank, the government can come in and seize it. If your Bitcoins are at a Bitcoin bank, the government can go to that Bitcoin bank and tell them, hey, give us this person's Bitcoin. So I think it's really, really important for people involved in the medical cannabis industry or anything at all for that matter. Hold your Bitcoins yourself in a wallet in which you're in control of the Bitcoin. So examples of Bitcoin banks that are really convenient and easy to buy and sell Bitcoins connected with your traditional bank account are Coinbase, Circle, Zappo. Those are all fantastic for buying and selling Bitcoins, but do not store your Bitcoins with them, and don't trust them to keep your Bitcoins private, because they're in control of the Bitcoins for you. And if Uncle Sam comes to them and says, give us this or that user's Bitcoins, they have to do it, or otherwise they'll go to jail. Or if Uncle Sam goes to them and says, hey, give us this person's entire transaction history, they have to do it. They don't have a choice. So some examples of Bitcoin wallets in which the user actually controls the choice. So some examples of Bitcoin wallets in which the user actually control themselves for your smartphones would be blockchain.info. Other ones called Bread Wallet and let's see, Luxstack. There's a whole bunch, and I apologize. It's 6:30 in the morning here, but if you head on
Airbits Mycelium.
Right, Airbits, Mycelium, yeah, fantastic. Thank you for helping me out there. And there's a bunch more, and you can actually go over to bitcoin.com. There's a wallet section. You can see them broken down by their different types as well over there. So it's really, really important to understand the difference. If you're in the medical cannabis industry and you're at all worried about potentially having your bank account seized, make sure you aren't also storing your Bitcoins in an account in which they can be seized. So install a local wallet or on your phone or your computer. Keep them on your own device, and that way you don't have to worry about that sort of thing. So that's one of probably the most important things. If you pay attention to anything I say this morning, that's the thing you should probably pay attention to, is keep your wallet or keep your Bitcoins in a wallet in which you're in control. But as you know, Bitcoin, or maybe you don't know, like Bitcoin is getting more and more easy to use all over the world. I've been involved in Bitcoin for almost 5 years now. Even just 2 or 3 years ago, it was hard to imagine that there would be many websites this quickly that accepted Bitcoin. But right now, today, you can buy just about anything you want from Overstock.com, Expedia, Microsoft.com, and just anywhere. You can use Bitcoins now. There's a whole bunch of Bitcoin credit cards you can apply for as well, where you can convert your Bitcoins directly into credit on a credit card and then spend it anywhere that accepts, Visa or MasterCard. There's just so much stuff happening. Is this supposed to be a panel discussion, or am I supposed to rant about Bitcoin for 20 minutes there, Tone, or what's the game plan?
It's up to you guys. We had it set up for 20-minute presentations from each of you. But if you want to give like a 10-minute intro each, we can come up with some questions and turn it into a really good panel discussion.
Yeah, I think that sounds great if everyone else is agreeing. But again, if there's one thing I want you guys to take away from me this morning is keep your Bitcoins in a wallet in which you control your Bitcoins. If you're not doing that, you're at the mercy of the man, just like you were with your traditional banking account.
So, Roger, one more for you. So you funded, you're one of the original VCs in the space, I should probably say, funding Bitcoin companies with Bitcoin mostly. So can you talk about which companies you really liked and that you helped funded and that helped to grow the ecosystem?
Yeah, one of the very earliest and today biggest and most well-known companies that I put up the initial investment for was blockchain.info, that has, I think, over 3.7 million wallet users, or 3.7 million wallets all over the world at the moment, and growing by tens of thousands every single day, because it's a really great wallet in which you're in control of the Bitcoins yourself. It's fantastic. That's one. BitPay was another. I helped put up the seed money for BitPay, which processes a lot of the transactions online at this point for all sorts of people. So I was early on in that, and at that point there wasn't really too many other people that were willing to put money into the space. But I saw Bitcoin and I realized it was a way to put people in 100% complete control of their own money, and I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful thing for everybody all over the world, and wanted to get involved in that full time. So here I am today at 6:30 in the morning, almost 5 years later, still every bit as excited about it.
All right. Well, let's hand it over to Jerry and let him introduce himself and how he got into the space and got involved. Just on mute.
Hi everyone. My name is Jerry David Chan. I guess I got into Bitcoin in around 2012. I started most of my career, in fact all of my career besides the last year, has been in Wall Street banks as a technologist. I'm just doing trading systems, front office risk management systems, such stuff like that. But Bitcoin really caught my eye. After the financial crisis, it basically shook my confidence a little bit in Wall Street and the way the existing financial system was structured fundamentally. And so it really appealed to me, and then the more I looked into it, the more I really got into it. Not as early as Roger, of course, but still I remember when I first got into Bitcoin, the price was somewhere around $25 or so USD. So I definitely missed the initial sub $1 prices, but it was still enough of a buzz when it went to about 10 times the amount, the initial amount that I saw it as. So I guess that's a little bit about me. I actually have a presentation here, so I'll try to actually go through it. It'll be a little bit more formal. I hope that's okay with everybody in the audience. Let me see if I can get a screen share going here. All right. Does everybody, Tone, does everybody see, what do you see on your side? Do you see the...
I still see you.
Okay. How does that work? Oh, okay. I follow. Right.
Got it.
Forgive me. We were. Google Hangouts is still relatively new to me. Okay. Right. you see the presentation now?
Yeah, we do. Just make it full screen.
Okay. Let me see if I click present. Does that still work?
It's loading. Yep, you're on.
Cool. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Bitcoin and its usage in the global economy. So first thing, some numbers, because everybody likes to see numbers, big numbers, to get your attention. 40% of most transactions today in the world are still done in cash. So that's actually a very, very big number. I want you to think about, like, all the talks about credit cards, checks, wire transfers. At the end of the day, most of the world's transactions are still done in cash. So that's something to keep in mind. More numbers and graphs, because we all love that, on Wall Street at least. The takeaway here is, look at the left-hand side, the bar graph, if you can see the numbers there. If you can, I apologize, I'll read them out. But the big red portions are cash, and this is a graph that tracks how many transactions per consumer on the y-axis, and on the bottom is how big the transactions are. So you'll see on the leftmost side, from anything less than $25, a good majority of those transactions are all cash, right? And this is compared to checks, credit cards, debit cards, and any electronic transfers, right? And so I want you to think about, why do you think that is? Most of the respondents to this survey, they quoted that either they saw credit cards as unsafe, and that is to an extent true. With credit cards, you have inherent problems like fraud or stolen identity, identity theft, and all that kind of stuff. And the other reason why people are using cash more is because a lot of the folks are just unbanked, or they're in a social class which they cannot acquire or cannot use financial services of a bank because of they may be in the lower class, and they may be like they don't have the financial standing to open a bank account. So think about that portion of society, and then realize that they are still, larger than 50% on average, all the transactions done these days. So what does this all kind of talk about in general? Basically, what is cash? It's essentially the original money. So what has money been in the past? It's evolved from things like shells, salt and oxen during the Roman times, and then finally precious metals. And then only very recently, and maybe the last, popularly at least, only in the last couple hundred years, we've started using government script or paper money. What is the primary goal of money? What does money have to be in order to be a good money? It needs to be fungible, which means interchangeable indistinctly from one unit of money to another. It should be, they all should be the same. It should be durable, in that it doesn't get destroyed easily. Divisible, which means it's easy to create small denominations like pennies or cents of versions of the units of value. And I guess most importantly, I don't know why it's number 4, but scarcity. That if money is not scarce, then it ceases to have a good value store. You cannot rely on the fact that the value you put into the money today would be the same later if the money is not scarce. It's not a scarce commodity. And finally, verifiable, or easily verifiable, which means you can identify this money easily. Anybody can identify it. Gold had great they had this property in spades because anybody could weigh it and they know it's gold generally. Until recently, they started replacing gold insides with tungsten. But in the old ages, in the old times, people didn't have that technology to spoof gold. So what does this all kind of boil down to? What we're all talking about is this notion of monetary sovereignty, right? And I'd like to quickly talk about monetary sovereignty in a little bit of a background, because this is going to be very central to the point of why Bitcoin, and why Bitcoin is specifically in the industry you guys are in. So why Bitcoin is because Bitcoin is first and foremost a permissionless, censorship-free money, right? And it gives us for the first time in at least 80 years this notion of monetary sovereignty, right? And what is monetary sovereignty? It's basically your rights of personal property applied to your money, right? Ever since our gold has been taken away by the government, we haven't really owned our own money. We've been borrowing this government paper and using it as a token money, right? And therefore, our value or our wealth is not truly ours, right? Without monetary sovereignty, your money doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the central bank, right? Because they're the only ones who print this money. And it is therefore a very, very poor long-term store of value. Not to mention the banks, if they choose to revoke your use of it selectively, i.e. censorship, then you have no reprise against this. They can shut you out of the system. And being from the United States, you don't really experience this on a daily basis so much. But if you go to any third world country, or even some second world countries, you have people who are unbanked, not because they don't have enough economic wealth. It's because they're either doing something that their governments don't approve of, or some other reason, right? So basically, you are using money at the permission of your government if you're using paper money. So a lot of people might argue, though, that fiat money has had a great historical store of value. They point to things like look, U.S. dollar is the most stable store of value for the last 100 years, but I propose to you that that's actually just a ruse, because what's actually happened is that the governments have been valuing everything in terms of U.S. dollars, and that's why U.S. dollars seems stable. Excuse me. If you were instead to value things that you buy on a daily basis against something like gold, then you would see very, very quickly that U.S. dollar has actually lost over 6,000% of its value since its inception, or since gold was removed as a backing for U.S. dollar, at least. Just by seeing that gold used to be worth $20 an ounce, and now it's worth what, $1,200, around $1,100 an ounce. So if everything was still based on gold, then prices of a loaf of bread would be 1/1000th of what they are today at the supermarket, right? So if you think of it that way, then U.S. dollars isn't that stable. So let's go back to like why Bitcoin is important in this sense, because Bitcoin itself is a threat to the current system, right? Its existence alone is enough to keep central banks in check. It's enough to keep fiat money, the people who own and run the existing system, in check. And being that it's there will give you the freedom, right, to control your own money, if the central banks do something which is either by mistake or by malice. Regardless, if they mismanage the current money system, then you always have something to fall back on. And that's kind of the same. It's the same situation that people had back in the days of cash, and I mean real cash, not paper U.S. Federal Reserve notes. I mean real cash, as in gold-backed notes, or gold itself, or anything of value, silver for that matter. Those were the days when you actually owned your money, and if the government mismanaged your money, you always had some reprise. You always had your value stashed away underneath your mattress, which you could use, and therefore it didn't infringe upon your freedoms. So that's what I mean by monetary sovereignty, and that's the most important aspect, I believe, of Bitcoin, among many others. There are a lot of features of Bitcoin, but that's the one that's kind of most important in my perspective.
Hey, Jared, do you want to maximize your slides?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Awesome. Much better.
So what is Bitcoin useful for? So as we just discussed, monetary sovereignty. And the two other things which is kind of useful for, which is more applicable to business people, right? With Bitcoin, because it is a digital asset, you can realize finally a global marketplace, global outsourcing of labor and goods and services, right? For instance, you might hear a lot of talk about IoT, devices talking to each other. I think we're still a couple of years off, maybe even a decade off from that reality, but definitely in that reality, digital money would be the way internet-connected devices or autonomous devices will be transacting with each other, transacting with people. So maybe, if you can imagine Amazon drones dropping off medical marijuana in places where it's legal, and then people being able to pay the drones. Definitely, digital money is how this would be done. The drone is not going to have a credit card swiper or something like that, or nor is it going to have a cash box you can shove money in, shove paper money in. Now, the last thing is a little bit contentious, but this is something I totally believe in: regulatory arbitrage. And I believe this is very, or should be, in my perspective. Correct me if I'm wrong. Very salient or very meaningful in the industry of medical marijuana or cannabis, because what it really means is that when you have a digital currency or cash, in fact, just cash. Let's just talk. This is just purely cash. Cash is great for arbitraging regulations, and this does not mean breaking the law. This means using the law efficiently. For instance, if it is illegal in one place but legal in another, then you may be able to skirt some gray areas. For instance, gray market for cameras is a great example. It's not illegal for exporters of Nikon, Canon cameras in Japan to sell it to people who then resell it. It's not illegal, but it's not totally legal depending on your jurisdiction. So therefore, most gray area electronics come through places where it's perfectly legal, like Hong Kong or Malaysia or Indonesia. So this is what I mean by regulatory arbitrage, which is a very, very I suppose a useful feature of a digital currency in order to take advantage of this. So let's look at some of the uses of Bitcoin in the past, good and bad. So on the left-hand side, you'll see ones which are flat out illegal or shady. And then on the right-hand side, you see some uses of Bitcoin which are perfectly legal and fine. So for instance, let's just go quickly. If everybody doesn't know about Silk Road, that's where they sold drugs illegally online. They took Bitcoin. People don't usually talk about that, but that was a big use of it initially. Money launderers, FinCEN and regulators love to say how Bitcoin's used for money laundering. I actually haven't seen any evidence of this, but nevertheless, I put it on the screen because, yes, theoretically, Bitcoin could be used for money laundering, but cash is much preferable, and any cash, in fact, could be used for these things. Last one, tax efficiency. For instance, once again, it's like companies, you all know Apple and Google, they don't pay a lot of taxes, if any at all, on U.S. soil because they just incorporate elsewhere. That's what I talk about, tax efficiency. So on the right-hand side, you see like growers of medical marijuana, medical cannabis, remittance for overseas workers. So a lot of immigrant workers come in, they like to send money overseas. Bitcoins or digital currencies is great for that. Global commerce, for instance, buying things overseas, e-commerce, Amazon, eBay, Alipay, these things could use Bitcoin for paying somebody who is not in your part of the world. And finally, outsourcing, so paying for web services, paying for software to be written in another country for you, paying for VPN services, essentially any sort of outsourcing of labor, where the product is a digital good, then you can pay them with digital money. It makes everything very, very simple. Now let's look at these industries in the same light of those, in the perspective of those three things which Bitcoin's good for that I just mentioned in the previous slide. So you see, basically everything boils down into either a play on regulatory arbitrage or monetary sovereignty, which is, you know, personal property of your own money, or use of opening up a new global marketplace, which is the globalization, I suppose, using taking advantage of a globalization marketplace. They all have basically the core in one of those three tenets of Bitcoin, one of those three defining features of Bitcoin. So how do you make money from money? Bitcoin is money. Bitcoin is a technology for digital cash. So this is something that a lot of companies in the last couple of years have been struggling with. I mean, how do you make a business from money itself? It's not exactly totally clear, but a lot of things have been tried. Quickly going over them, there are P2P loans, which is peer-to-peer loans. What this is the ability to loan money and borrow money from just pools of people willing to lend them without the intermediary of a bank. There are companies doing this, such as like BTC Jam. And there's some other ones I can't remember right now. Next one, wallets. So what are wallets? They're essentially the digital analogy of a bank account. There are companies doing security of your money vault, like long-term cold storage of your money. When I mean money, I mean Bitcoin. Like Roger mentioned, the wallet companies like Coinbase, Zappo, they do all this kind of stuff. And so there is a service there. And so if you want that level of service, if you're willing to trust these people with their money because you think they're more trustworthy than your own ability to keep your money, which could be the case for very many people, then there's a business there to be made. Exchanges, that's another business, a potential business. Whenever you have a new currency created, you have the need to exchange it back and forth between to your fiat currency, so your local government currency. So there's spreads to be made there. Tokenization is the use of the Bitcoin network or technology as a backing to a token or a digital coin which represents something else, such as physical gold or even government fiat. So there are companies that do this. They just act as a gateway to turn your physical assets into a digital form so that you can transact with that digital form of the digital form of the asset easier. Derivatives and service securities, the next two, kind of obvious for those from banking. Whenever you have volatility in the price of something, then there is a need to be served there, which is hedged your business from that volatility. Therefore, creating the need for forward markets to hedge against forward future prices, option markets to hedge against volatility of those prices and time. Securities, which is folks doing company issuances of their stock as tokens on top of Bitcoin and paying dividends this way. And finally, crowdfunding, which is kind of related because when you don't need to necessarily go to a bank to create or to crowdfund a new idea, a new startup. Now you can just fund by selling digital currencies. Which is a little bit more, I suppose it's a little bit easier to do for certain types of startups. So you see people doing, companies all in this space right now. But how does this kind of apply to you? So I would like to leave you with one sort of thought. Whenever you see the notion of this term financial freedom, you probably see it or hear of it from a commercial of a bank probably selling you mutual funds, probably selling you retirement plans or banking services. And it usually is accompanied by an old couple on a beach retiring, enjoying life. I would like you to start thinking of maybe financial freedom, the term financial freedom, more as monetary sovereignty, more as the freedom for you to do with your money what you wish, because it's your money. It's not the government's money. And so I want you to think of financial freedom as what Bitcoin represents. And in that sense, think about your businesses that you're in. Think about how you can exploit monetary sovereignty, exploit regulatory arbitrage, or access a global marketplace. And if you base your business on one of those three things, then I believe that you'll be very successful. So there are a lot of businesses which are doing many things in Bitcoin, but I feel that unless you are basically trying to address one of those three basic tenets of Bitcoin, then it won't really last very long as a viable business. So think of that and think of financial freedom as Bitcoin. That's my presentation. So with that,
Awesome. Thanks, Jerry.
Excellent.
You wanna stop?
Excellent.
The screen share?
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else to say, or I was going to just get Roger's opinion, see if he wants to add anything to your presentation, what you just said, before we move on to Manny?
No, I'm okay. That's all I got to say.
All I have to add.
Roger, you have anything else to add on that? It was similar to what you were saying.
Yeah, I want to add a thank you, Jerry, for being able to give such a well put together and technical presentation at such an early time. It's very similar to what I would have said if the presentation were a couple of hours later in the day, I think. Thank you for that, Jerry. But as I was saying before, though, one of the most important things, though, is realize the difference between a Bitcoin wallet in which you're controlling the Bitcoins yourself and one in which you're trusting somebody else to control the Bitcoins for you. And especially if you're involved in any one of those industries having to do with regulatory arbitrage, as Jerry put it, you should be using a Bitcoin wallet in which you're in control of the Bitcoins yourselves. That's probably the most important thing you should take away from the conference today. The second most important thing maybe is that Bitcoin's not hard. If you haven't used a Bitcoin wallet already, I'm sure someone in the audience there will be more than happy to set you up with one. And just listening about it, it sounds hard and difficult. Once you've used it, it's not so bad at all. So ask your neighbor to help you set up a wallet if you don't have one already. And I'm sure they'll help you. They'll be more than happy to help you. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to Manny. I'm going to put Manny on the big screen. So go ahead and briefly give your background and how you got interested in Bitcoin, and then just talk about briefly what you planned on for your presentation.
Sure. Okay, I guess I'm on the big screen even though I see everybody at the meeting. Hi, guys. And my name is Manny Perez, Manuel Perez. I worked corporate in the overseas oil industry in Venezuela for over 20 years. While I was in Venezuela, the government made decisions that made me lose everything I had 3 times. So I came back to the U.S. with in late 1999, and I started over. Now, many things happened as I got back into the groove of things, as I recovered myself economically, and I always kept in my head that my money really wasn't my money. I'd have banks do all sorts of things to me. You've heard the horror stories. So my intent was to find out how to make money safer. And what I actually did was in 2010, 5 years ago, I got into monetary compliance, working with remittance agencies, with people that had to send money internationally, and how they could comply with the law. Because they were having a lot of the problems that you guys are facing. They were being accused of laundering money. Almost 3 years ago, I came across the concept of Bitcoin, and I said, wow, this could work. And what happened was 2 years ago, I got really active with the LinkedIn community with talking about Bitcoins. And an idea came up at the very beginning of 2014, which was how do we turn it mainstream? And a number of us started talking. And what we found out, we concluded, was that to do it, we needed to create a community that agreed on how we were going to do business. We understood that it's a global community. We understood that everybody shared ideas that were different. And we understood that we all spoke different languages and worked under different laws. So the idea of the Cryptocurrency Standards Association was born. I'm co-chair of that organization, and I'm not an engineer or anything like that. I'm not a lawyer. I am a public administrator. I do know about policy, and I've worked a lot with community building, both in the corporate world, in the as a community developer locally, and so I am involved in politics. We won't say which party right now, but I'm very much involved in getting citizens and participating. So that's me. So CRIPSA is basically a member-driven organization. Anybody can join. As I say it, if the U.S. government wants to be a member, go for it. But you're going to have an equal voice. We're a peer-to-peer organization. And as a peer-to-peer organization, we don't believe in somebody lording it over another. So I'm not going to lord it over anybody, none of the founders. We're just members. We do have organizing responsibilities, but we answer to you. So, now to the speech. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Jerry, for the great introduction you gave. Now I don't have to go over all the stuff. I'm going to be talking about risk management. And the speech I'm giving, if you read the title, it's Cryptocurrency for Cannabis Success Without Going to Jail. I'm glad I didn't do a detailed presentation because Jerry would have blown me out of the water. Because the idea here is that we need to find a way to use cryptocurrency and leverage the power of Bitcoin specifically because it is the most accepted cryptocurrency out there. And if you want to try to experiment with the new cryptocurrency, you're free to do it. But I'm going to talk about Bitcoin as an example. You can leverage the power of Bitcoin, all of the benefits we were given here, and turn it to your advantage. And because you have that ledger, that open ledger, the blockchain, it's very easy to actually use the regulations to help yourself. Now, we are a global industry, but we have to remember, cannabis is approved regionally in the U.S., only by each state. So, your business is limited to each state that you are active in, and you should actually, for compliance reason and to avoid headaches, think of your state as a community. Imagine for a moment, you actually make it easy for your customers, and you're the guy that helps the customer get their wallet installed on their cell phone. In their case, they're free to choose whatever wallet they want. If they want a wallet that's more like a bank, where somebody else handles their money, does everything for them, they can do that. All you care about is that they have a wallet so that they can buy their Bitcoins using their credit card, their debit card, anywhere in the world. I'm not going to give names of wallets or of companies, but I will mention that there is actually a Canadian company that will sell credit cards that you can use with Bitcoins on them. And that Bitcoin can be used to charge your Bitcoin wallet. That's in case you don't want to go through all the U.S. Anti-money laundering regulations. But that's your clients, not you. You want to comply with the laws because you're actually being controlled by your state, by a number of regulators in the state, and then by all the regulators at the federal level. In comes your customer, and your customer points the wallet at your QR code, does the transaction. Now, you receive the Bitcoins directly from your customer. Don't go through a Bitcoin exchange or somebody else to receive your Bitcoins. Why? Because then the regulators are going to be looking at that company. And you might find that that company loses its bank account because it's involved in the cannabis trade. It's delicate. Is it fair? Come on, I grew up my whole life living unfair situations as a teenager. So right now, I just say, I don't care if it's fair or unfair. I just want to know, how don't I get in trouble? You have your customer pay you, just as if it was cash, preferably Bitcoin. Once you've got those Bitcoin in your wallet, and your wallet is yours, not from an account bearing Bitcoin exchange or holder or vault or wallet, once you've got your Bitcoin, it's yours. Nobody can take it away. You decide. This is your bank. That's the great thing about Bitcoin. We can be our own bank. We decide. Now, next step, making a community, an ecosystem. You talk to the people you regularly have to pay, and you tell them, listen, I know you're tired of me coming in with a briefcase full of cash, and the guards and everybody else. You tell them, why don't you accept Bitcoin? You help them get their own wallet. They see all the customers you have because you're going to show them. You're going to say, listen, there's over 100,000 of us using Bitcoin right now. They get involved in Bitcoin. Now you can pay in Bitcoin for your rent. The government's going to get involved quickly. There are already counties accepting Bitcoin for payments and for taxes. Once the government gets involved, you can pay everything in your Bitcoin. And while you're paying and receiving, you're actually accumulating wealth in Bitcoin. So now you have your money in Bitcoin. You're paying your wages, your salaries, and yourself in Bitcoin. Very interesting comment. When you pay a salary, now your employee can go deposit the salary in his bank. When you pay yourself a salary, you can deposit that salary in a bank. It's not your cannabis business money. It's your hard-earned Bitcoins that you sold to get dollars. And since Bitcoin is a commodity, at the end of the year, you sit down with your lawyers, with your accountant, you say, okay, guys, do we want to cash in? How do we cash it in? But you do it as a community. My suggestion, and some of you might have read the blog I put up on our Telegraph sharing information, the messenger, I actually think you can create a trade association in each state. And your trade association decides how to reduce risk. You identify what risk you have. You identify how to reduce it. Nobody can say you're colluding to break any laws because you're actually working together to avoid having that large amount of cash that creates headaches for everyone, including the government. You do that, and at the end of the year, if you're a trade association, you can actually all agree to share if Bitcoin went up in price, which it probably will, or if anybody says, oh, it's lower, the association, the community can decide what to do. But at the end, it's your Bitcoins. It's your wealth. It's your money. And you're going to have the freedom to decide how to use it. So I think you do it that way, you get an ecosystem working. You're going to be able to walk into your coffee shop, you pay with Bitcoin. You go into the bar, you pay with Bitcoin. You don't have to carry large amount of cash if you're going to your local dispensary because you pay in Bitcoin. You go to a local restaurant, if everybody has Bitcoins, they're going to be accepting Bitcoins because the fees are lower. And it's the merchant that pays the fees. And the great thing is, it's still your choice. You choose. So, Roger told you a lot of the information on how to use it. Jerry told you about a lot of the legal implications. And I'm telling you how to take both parts and make it into a working proposition. Will it be easy? No, you got to convince everybody else to work with you. But hey, we do that every day. You guys are innovators, so you know how to convince people that your business is good. I think everybody here is an innovator. We're all involved with Bitcoin. But we don't want to convince people that Bitcoin is good. We want to convince them to use Bitcoin because it's more comfortable and it's easier to use in the cannabis industry, in the legal cannabis industry. And if we do this in each one of the states that has legalized cannabis, then Bitcoin grows all over the country. And more importantly, the financial system and the government will realize that now we have our house organized, we can comply with the laws, we get organized crime off our backs, because guys, I was overseas. If you had a lot of cash, they'd come knocking on your door. I doubt that the U.S. is much safer in that sense. Yep, you can cough. I know security companies are making a lot of money. So all we want to do is make it safer, make it easier. CRIPSA, the Cryptocurrency Standards Association, is more than willing to continue helping you guys out, helping you define what your risks are, how to mitigate risks, how to meet the compliance. And why would your community want to meet the requirements of the banks and the regulators? Well, basically because it's like if I walk into a bar at midnight and I tell them that I'm just drinking water and I just sit on a stool. Everybody's going to look at me weird. But if I behave like everybody else, if I show them that I'm fine, but I tell them, listen, I'm taking medication, I can't drink, but I love the conversation, and I'm new in town, so I'm just sitting here, people might say, man, he looks okay. Let's let him sit. Let's listen to him. And sure, I'll be different. But at least I'll be, in Bitcoin terms, transparent. I'll be free. I'll be an equal. And everybody will respect everybody's privacy. And those are the four elements that make Bitcoin very special. And to those four elements of freedom, peer-to-peer, transparency, and privacy, I'll add the fifth one. Don't go to jail. In Bitcoin, we have no need to go to jail because Bitcoin is really democracy in action. So I think I've said everything. If anybody has questions, we go on with it.
Awesome. Thank you, Manny. So right before we go to questions, so what I'm going to, so while people are thinking of their questions, I actually want to show the audience, some of them that have never used Bitcoin, how easy and powerful it is. And since we have 2 people in Japan, so if anyone downloads a wallet that has never had a wallet, probably Airbits or Mycelium or blockchain.info, we have someone here. If you've never had one, if you download one, we will actually, Roger or Jerry will send you like 50 cents or $1 just to show you how all you have to do is put it up to the camera, and you will have access, and you will have it within seconds right after that. You guys up for it?
Don't be shy. I have my wallet ready. Come walk right up to the camera with your Bitcoin QR code, and I'm going to give you money from Tokyo.
Oh, and your name is?
So hold it still. Hopefully the resolution will be high enough so I can see.
Okay.
Global marketplace.
But so which wallet did you get?
Blockchain.
Blockchain. Okay, so log into the wallet. So you have, I already see the QR code. So you need to present that QR code. You can actually make it bigger if you click on it. Just click on it. Oh, maybe not. That's good. It's good enough. So all you have to do is put it up to the camera for them to scan it. So probably right around here. You can see it. So you can see it yourself where it is. Oh, you can see it in the bottom. No, too much. You can see how it is in the bottom corner. Just like that. Yep. Just hold up steady.
Now hold it still, and I'm going to scan that as soon as the resolution. And actually a little bit higher because our own pictures are blocking part of the QR code. Yeah, there you go. Hold it still right there, please. A tiny bit higher from where you were. Maybe a little bit farther from the camera. The camera's a little bit out of focus, so it's a little bit hard to scan over Google Hangouts sometimes. And you'll have to hold it still so that the resolution.
I'll hold it.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Tony.
All right, here you go. Just watch that.
There you go. Hold it still. I think Google Hangouts throttles the bandwidth automatically.
Yeah, it's a little blurry. Tilts a little bit, so it's
There
more
we go,
like a
got
square.
it. Okay, I have it. There we go. So
You got it?
$1.
Oh, I got it. Yeah. All right.
So I just sent from my wallet, my blockchain wallet, I just sent $1. And if she checks her wallet, she just received it just like that.
So let us know when you have it.
If she hits the home button, she'll see it right now in the bottom middle of the blockchain wallet screen. And so everybody keep in mind, another one. Okay, keep in mind, I'm sending this money here directly to these people. Maybe a little bit closer to the camera, please.
It already came through. You can see what you're doing.
There you go. And these people, they don't have to give their names. They don't have to give their tax ID number. They don't have to give any information else. So hold it still maybe a little bit closer or maybe a little bit farther. I think the screen brightness is the contrast.
Yeah, you want to lower the brightness on your screen?
Yeah, lower the brightness on your screen and it'll do better. Normally you would text message this to people, or normally you're not holding up QR codes over Skype. But this just shows the power of Bitcoin.
So what I recommend for practice, if you got a blockchain wallet and you have $1, I mean, I'll give you another $1, and download a couple of other wallets, like a Mycelium, like an Airbitz, and try sending yourself like 25 cents through the wallet to see which one you like better. It's a little simpler than trying to pick a bank. Can you imagine doing that with a bank? Can you just play around with $1?
Touch
send it to a bank so I can pick out which one I like.
No,
you can actually do that.
It's fuzzy.
Yeah, I'm going crazy actually. I'm in one of my phones. I've got an old Bitcoin wallet, but it doesn't have the QR code showing up. So I'm gonna use another one. Let's see.
And normally this isn't done over Google Hangouts or Skype. You could just send them via text message or email or put it right on your website. So, but it just shows like here, here we are. It works anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter where you're born, where you live currently, what color your skin is, what color your passport is. It works for everybody on the planet. It doesn't matter what you're buying or selling. This should be incredibly exciting to anybody who thinks people should be in charge of their own money.
Mm-hmm.
So he got yours, right?
No.
You guys see? No, we didn't get it.
To hold it up again.
Yeah.
My bad. Oh, it's all right. We already showed that it works, so I'll get some later. I'll take care of it on this side, Roger. But thanks.
Thank you, John.
Somebody will get them. If anybody else wants to download them, we will take care of you. But this is just an example of how this works, and you can text this, email this. Some of the wallets you can take a screenshot, take a picture of that QR code, and somebody else's wallet will read it from the picture. So it makes it incredibly simple, and this is how someone can pay for your product. You can talk to your customers, and again, right there, and then they'll pay it, and there's no way he can get that $1 back. This is the beauty of it. There are no chargebacks with this system. And this is great for merchants